Hi, everyone. I'm Devika. I'm hosting this panel. I'm guessing for some of you, this is the best day at work you've ever had, and for others, maybe the worst. But yeah, before. Oh, you don't have a chair.
I can sit on the side.
Oh, maybe one more chair.
Can I grab a chair? I'm not sitting with Jane.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, anyway, on that note, I just want to really welcome everyone's commitment to turn up and to consider something, again, that's been so deeply entrenched. The ideas may be challenging and uncomfortable, but that's why we're here, and I really invite your curiosity. Everyone here in this room is accomplished and skillful, but I think we need to set aside our knowledge and our experiences and come at this with a beginner's mind to really see something anew. So we have this wonderful panel of people with a wealth of experience. The purpose of wealth advisors in the current wealth advisor paradigm is optimization of wealth and efficiency in taxation. However, these are not laws of nature, as they are so often made out to be, but a set of ideas that have been made up and agreed upon. The people on this panel are unwilling to follow the paradigm because it is incompatible with their values and their sense of fairness. The themes we will be exploring today from the point of view of these wealth holders is how can we redefine wealth optimization and tax efficiency for a progressive wealth holder in the context of the effect of extreme wealth concentration on wider society. So, can I invite each of the panelists to start out by telling us a little bit about your wealth journey and why you want to see an evolution or maybe a revolution in the wealth advisory services. Can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. Hi, everyone. My name's Lauren. And I guess I'll caveat my part up here in that I actually am not the wealth holder in my family yet, but will be at some point. And I guess part of the reason I'm here is because I haven't been involved in very many conversations about something that will change my life in a massive way. And that's very frustrating. So yeah, I guess there's two parts to my journey. One of them is the growing sense of urgency that I feel, and it was interesting that the Canary Wharf, Tower Hamlets, Hackney thing was mentioned twice already today, because I worked in schools in Newham, and I also had that experience of sitting in the classroom with young people, looking at Canary Wharf so close and yet so far. You know, I can't watch a David Attenborough documentary without genuinely being tearful at the end of it. And just the sense of needing to do something is growing and growing and growing, and it wasn't happening. And then the other part of my journey is fairly limited experience of the advisory industry. I personally don't really have an advisor myself. I guess it hasn't been needed. But there are advisors around my family who have created structures and systems that will, like I said before, change my life at some point. I still don't know when that will be. And those structures have had no input from me either. And when I have got myself in conversations, which has happened when I've said, hi, can I come to a meeting so I at least have a bit more information than I have now? It's been a baseline of, oh, this structure is very tax efficient and let's think about your future generations. I don't even know if I want to have children as a personal decision, but part of that is because I'm not sure it's a place, the future is a place I necessarily feel very hopeful about. So yeah, I just feel a lot of frustration and urgency, and that's kind of why I wanted to be part of this conversation today.
Thank you so much. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I guess we've heard a lot about the multiple terrifying crises that we are currently living under. One of those, the most stark, being how extreme wealth inequality is in the world. And at the same time, we're in the midst of this great wealth transfer where some 30 trillion, a number I absolutely can't comprehend, is being transferred to from kind of baby boomers to the next generation, and just kind of further entrenching that inequality. And when my sisters and I came together and we feel really strongly about these injustices, we felt deeply uncomfortable about knowing that we were going to be part of this system. And so we looked to think what we could do to change that. And inevitably, it led us to philanthropy. Whilst philanthropy is commendable and can be transformative, those of us who work within the space know that it can also be deeply unaccountable, undemocratic, and uphold the very systems that we're trying to change. We have a family foundation and found that we can support social movements, working for reparative, to repair harm, and to support movements calling for systemic change. Yet philanthropy can't replace the crucial role that the tax system and that tax plays in our society, the one that truly and deeply and systemically addresses inequality. But tax is a terrifying, kind of scary and not so sexy of a word. I had always felt when we would go to meetings around tax in my family, this discomfort or this misalignment with our values and the way that things were expected, and the kind of assumed purpose of wealth was to maximize it, to protect it, to grow it for future generations or ourselves. And it always felt like that kind of big kind of elephant in the room that I wasn't ready to address. And thankfully, due to the incredible work of the Good Ancestor movement and other communities where wealth holders are coming together and learning about that there's a role for us to play in calling for a change to this system and calling that our voices matter, to say that we believe that we need to close those loopholes. We need to not participate in taking advantage of the kind of schemes and tax minimization tools encouraged to us. And that there are many of us who are part of a group called Patriotic Millionaires UK, and there are other global ones around the globe that are coming together and calling for a wealth tax and an end to this continued injustice. So yeah, that's what brought me here today.
Thank you, Christina.
Sorry, I've got a little cough. So hi, I'm Marlene, and I'm very honored to be here. Come from Vienna, Austria, so everything very UK related I have absolutely no clue on, but I have an opinion on everything. That's a good way to start. So I am from a family of massive wealth, and I was announced an inheritance in the double digits of the millions because the transparency around wealth doesn't even extend to my own family regarding actual numbers and crunching them. And I was very frustrated with that because I was approached by a financial advisor out of this whole financial advisory industry who basically said this was funny money meant to be spent because no worries, there's going to be more. We're talking about something between 10 and 99 million. Take the currency that you wish for that is very strong. What the hell? Even to someone with with this massive financial background that I had, this was not a normal way to approach wealth. And it just accelerated my digging into what does this mean and my haughty thoughts of what social justice is and how can I now not just pretend that I have this very beautiful spine and not this blocked colon that will keep me upright, but mean that I'm full of shit. How can I get this spine going? And really it means that I am taking action with this wealth and tackling all these questions that are very uncomfortable that nobody asks me. Where does it really come from? Who worked for this wealth and who accumulated it? Because usually those positions are not the same. How did the company that was sold in the end of the 90s for billions perform during the Second World War? Why does nobody ask these questions a wealth holder? So I'm not only given this inheritance, I'm giving this background, this hyper-individualistic socialization where I can pretend like I'm on top of society, and really I'm really at the far edge of it, pretending I'm on top. I'm in power, that's what I'm given, power. But just because I'm in power doesn't mean I should be in charge. And to address that within my own journey, but also within the financial advisory sector and my relationship to it was crucial. One of the first things I did, I sat the advisors that I inherit with the wealth, because you do inherit your advisory board. I sat them down, I forced the not so polite a word in German, because we have two words for you, one that is very polite and one that is normal, which you use with friends. I forced that on them to flatten out the hierarchy immediately. I was like, I'm sorry, I know this is rather rude, but I want this because you're all white men telling me what to do, and frankly, you're the one providing service for me. So let's turn this around again. And I talked to them, and they were not interested in anything that my values were concerned with. I don't know if that English sentence makes sense, but I hope you correct that. But they were willing to do as I pleased, and I thought that's not even close to good enough. So I don't really fire them, because at that time I didn't have the wealth, but I kind of like never talked to them again about it, because I was like, not interested in this status quo system-serving approach of things. So in all of this, I encountered resource generation, resource justice. Other people with wealth would tackle the same questions of, should I be in this position of power just because I was born into it, fantasizing about dynastic supremacy, which is always leading down a very dark road. It's weird that you would laugh about that. And I got to meet Stephanie Brobby and the team of the Grid System Movement, and saw that there was willingness to change the system from within as well. But this doesn't exclude that tax justice is a thing. So I'm advocating for that very, very, very loudly. And I'm very happy to be here, and I hope I didn't overstep boundaries with time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jen Perry. I'm here as a person of wealth. I'm here with my husband, James. And we'd love to share a little bit of our experience. We come into our situation as first generation. It's all quite recent. And through entrepreneurship and business. And it's really great, thank you to the Good Ancestor Movement, to be having these conversations, because these were the conversations that we wanted to be having for a long time, but particularly when we came into being in a position of extreme wealth. And it would be good just to share our experience of the conversations that were on offer. And the conversations that were on offer were not the conversations that we wanted to have. And thank you to Kirsty for pointing out that linguistically how this can happen in tax, but we can also talk about this in the context of wealth.
Thanks, James. You want to add to that?
Yes, can I just grab a mic?
Sorry.
Hello, I'm James, married to Jen, and as she said, we took quite a lot of risk together, growing a business, and kind of got there. And that obviously opened up these questions, and we encountered this world, this kind of secret, hidden world that isn't like available to most people. It's like airport lounges when you go through airport. It's a secret place. I suppose that the reason I'm super excited about this is that it's very obvious to me and to us that the world as it has been designed for good reason, you know, kind of prosperity gospel, you know, wealth generators should focus on generating wealth. They can outsource social and environmental responsibilities to government, who will regulate to tame the animal instincts. We know this gospel, and people bought into it, and it kind of made sense intellectually, but it's quite obvious it doesn't work. You know, we know now that governments can't protect us. They can't protect the natural world. They can't protect rivers. They actually can't protect society. And Gary was talking earlier about this sort of feedback loop of wealth creation, which is inevitably going to lead to new wealth accruing to the wealthy. So in the 15 years before the pandemic, the UK economy grew by 23% over those 15 years, and median incomes didn't move forward at all. So where did that money go? Well, it went to the wealthy, right? So this problem is going to end very, very badly for us all. So there's 3 points I wanted to make just in opening, which was, the first one was, we're here because we want to take responsibility for what we own. It has our name on it, and therefore it's on us what it's doing. And the wealth management industry is not set up to tell us what it's doing. You ask the question, they say, no idea, not our problem. Government regulates, it's lawful. Don't even think about it. The second point is, and I slightly resist this language of progressive because it feels to me like that means left wing, right? This is not left wing. You know, I don't identify as somebody who's left wing. And I think it's about morality and it's about humanity. It's not actually about how big the state should be or what the state should intervene in or what it shouldn't intervene in. I think that's a separate political conversation. So I just kind of really want to land this point that this is not about left wing. This is about morality. And people of the right and people of the left will equally identify with the imperative for this work. And finally, I just wanted to kind of make the point, this is inevitable. This is inevitable. Because what's gone before cannot continue. It's obvious. And so, you know, people like us show up and, you know, I mean, I've been doing this for a while and having these conversations, and people used to think I was completely nuts. And it's lovely now that there's a sort of veneer of sanity that comes with it. But over time, that's only going to get more powerful. And, you know, professional advisors might think that, you know, this lot is sort of saying something different to their parents, but wait till you speak to our kids. Yeah. So this is inevitable. So it's just a wonderful thing to be part of, and particularly at the ground floor. And I just want to give a big shout out to Steph and to Jake for making it happen. We're so grateful.
Thank you, James, and thank you for also, I mean, for depoliticizing it in ways, because humanity is not a political matter, and maybe Marlena disagrees. It is good to bring everyone along with us. I think it's a crucial thing, and we need our extremist flank, and we also need to bring the majority with us. So, Jonathan, after that.
Like everyone else said, basically. I'll try and add something, just my personal story is that I built a business for 20 years, and then over a 3-month period I sold it, and then suddenly I had money. And so that was quite a peculiar experience for me, and I suddenly found myself in a position where I knew a lot about something that I used to do and nothing about what I was about to do. And I didn't even know that I didn't know anything. So I literally just thought you put it in a bank account and it grew. That's literally what I thought happened. And then what happens is you speak to people and you find out you have to go and speak to a bunch of advisors. So I did. The selection process is opaque and a nightmare. I managed to find about 10. And a bunch of stuff happened. One of them is I went in thinking I was going to get an education. That didn't happen. I met really nice people. I think I should say that right from the out front. I didn't meet anybody that wasn't lovely and engaging and nice and listened and or told me they were listening. The thing that I went in with was that I thought when I sold my business that I had enough. That was the word that struck me for my family and for you know, I didn't need to move house or do any of those things. So I felt I've got enough. And so I went into that meeting thinking I had enough. So something then also happened. They did a life plan with me and they told me I didn't have enough. Literally, everyone said, well, you think you've got enough, but you never know, right? What if you live to be 150 and you live in an old age home for 25 years? And I was like, well, okay. But so it was, and that was really unsettling to be told that I didn't have enough. And then, but they had Kirsty's speech, brilliant, right? Because they said, it's all right, don't worry about it. We've got a solution and you just need to plug into it. And then you'll have enough. And if you just plug into that solution, you'll have enough. So I went, okay. And they said, and that's it. Now go off and have fun because you've earned it, right? And don't worry about it. And I was like, no, but I really want to understand it. And I ended up having to go and see my father-in-law and have like these weekly lessons on finance because no one in the financial services sector would give it to me. So that was the experience. And maybe I picked the wrong 10. I don't know, but that's maybe what happened to me. But when I spoke to other entrepreneurs, they basically had a similar experience. And we were too naive to realize there was another option. I want to say something about the political thing as well, and then I'll stop. What I really resented was having to justify the way I felt. I resented having to sell what I thought was morality and humanity and nice because I was considered the abnormal. I'm so not. Like, it's just, I think it's exhausting to try and convince a bunch of people. And I, you know, a bit of a kind of, you know, confessional moment. I ended up doing things that I really regret now. I really, really regret. And I'm going to spend the next 5 years, I was saying James earlier, unpicking them. Because it's so easy to do that. You make it so easy for me to do things. So there you go, that's me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So just off the back of the presentation before lunch with the linguistics on tax, Christina, I'd like to start with you because do you think the industry is essentially anti-tax, and how is that a problem?
Yeah, I think that research and the continued research will be really crucial in kind of these spaces to highlight the kind of language that is being told about tax, the message we're receiving about tax from the start. And my experience has been that like coded words around burden and kind of planning allows for kind of, very honestly, I was very naive and I didn't even know that there was an alternative of how we could engage with tax and tax structuring and tax planning that actually aligned with my values. And I think that's why the typology is so exciting, and the research that the Good Ancestor Movement has done, because even if our advisors had just offered that was an option rather than the assumption, which was by whatever means and like what the service we can provide is to maximize wealth and minimize tax without asking us, how do you feel about tax? And through my journey over the last year exploring the exciting topic of tax, I've learned that I love tax. And I believe that we should have tax pride. And I think more and more of us do, and we see the incredible value that tax creates in our society. And so I feel like there's a great opportunity for the advisory services to offer that to clients, ask those questions about what their values are, and lead in this transformation to a more just world.
Let's talk about tax.
Marlene, why are you tax proud rather than being mad for philanthropy?
First of all, I come from Austria. We don't have a wealth tax. We don't have an inheritance tax. We don't have a gift tax. We have a laughable capital gains tax. Out of 100 tax euros, 80 come from income and spending like VAT. 4 come from wealth-associated taxes, like when you buy a house, you have a house buying tax that you have to pay, which is ridiculous. Just to give you some context of the tax haven that I come from. The thing with tax is people tackle it not on the panels where I'm usually always with other very wealthy and privileged people. I'm hardly ever with non-privileged people on the podium talking about tax or tax justice. There's hardly ever anybody who does tax law who would actually know about this. But usually entrepreneurs, and whether they like to pay their taxes that they don't have because there's no such thing as a wealth tax in Austria, so it's a weird conversation we're having. It's about power. It's not an economic problem. It becomes, in consequence of a political decision, it becomes something that the economy has to deal with and work with. But it's not an economic decision or a financial decision that people like me should make. You only ask people where you assume that power lies, whether or not they're okay with something that is decided in terms of policies. So only wealthy people are asked about tax. Normal people who just pay tax and keep the system up are not asked whether they like that. How do you like your income tax? That's not a question. But how do you like your wealth tax? I've been asked this today. And so I think the crucial part when you go to the core of this, as far as I can analyze it, is this is a question of power, who holds it and who should hold it. And frankly, we're in a democracy. This is the answer to the question of how do we deal with power in this society? Well, democracy. Everybody gets a vote. There are certain restrictions, like a certain age limit and stuff, but still, you know, and not every pound or euro or dollar gets a vote. But this is the actual way we deal with it. Every euro gets a vote. That's how it's done in Austria, effectively. And we need to address this democratic aspect of it and the power aspect of it. And democracy is not a service to wealthy people to enrich them and to create the system that helps them hoard and have excessive amounts of wealth, which implies excessive amounts of power over people who work in order to create the wealth that you then hoard. We need to talk about democracy. We need to talk about the fact that just because we're in power, we're not in charge, legitimately. But the system puts it in charge nonetheless. And I think both tax evasion instead of tax positivity and also philanthropy tend to, in majority, like there's exceptions to this rule, but because there are exceptions, that's not the rule. They tend to enforce the system that we have and to continue our fantasies of wealth supremacy, white supremacy, male supremacy, all these fantasies of some particular group being better than everybody else and therefore in charge to paternalistically tell everybody how to deal with their lives. But that's not how it should be done. If I'm really equal, I must be in relationship with the society that I'm a part of. I'm not on top of society. I'm a part of it. And I love pop culture because when I watch The Crown, it's great, you know, because in Austria we ditched our aristocracy, so we watch yours. And they pretend like it's inevitable. But really, it isn't. It isn't inevitable that wealth has to be accumulated and power dealt with in this particular way. Or take Batman, in terms of superheroes and villains. You know, this guy could also just pay tax. And then Gotham City would have the resources to finance their police and their legal institutions. Who should take care of the freaking problem of Mr. Penguin Man, or whatever they're called, the clown, the Joker Man? Because having a person who has a very problematic phobia and trauma, a lot of people have trauma with their parents being killed, but if you're not wealthy, it's not an interesting story, right? And also a trauma with bats. Okay, fair enough. But if you run around in a bat costume, punching people in the face, threatening them with murder, with kidnapping, with all sorts of things, and then hiding away in your bat cave that you can only afford because you're a billionaire rich kid, having a butler at all times, this is the intimate relationship, right? Everybody else would be in jail for this kind of behavior, or or on a ward, and frankly, hopefully getting the help that they need. But we have decided otherwise. There's no such thing as a super rich. There's nothing super about rich people. They're rich. This is a symptom of a system. But the system is something we created, and we can change it. Laws are something that we can change. That's the beauty about democracy. We are allowed to participate in creating the world that we want to live in. And that's why I'm so adamant about tax justice. Actually, it comes too late, because it already starts in distribution, not in redistribution via tax justice. But this is something I can talk about and I can advocate for. And frankly, one of the coolest and most democratic things you can do is pay as much tax as possible. Because wealth is reflected in public infrastructure and not in GDP or in rich lists.
Mm. Okay, so wealth advisors out there, you know that tax proud is actually a thing and they actually exist. Here they are. I'm going to go on to Jen. I wanted to ask you the values that drive your being here and the work that you and James are involved with. What values do you want to see in your advisors?
Okay, yeah, so this is a lot of what has been said today, but I just want to state it again. When we started off and we met with wealth advisors and we had these conversations, we went and had them because we were new, and in this position we can talk about wealth redistribution, but let's just talk about wealth management for a moment. This was the situation we were in. And so we went and had these conversations, and they weren't the conversations we wanted to have. And I think the values, we realized that there was assumptions being made about what our goals were, about what success looked like for us, about what we wanted, that directed all of our conversations. And those values, which are the values we would like to get away from, were one of fear. There was this massive fear protection agenda for us and our family and our children. Another one would be scarcity, this fear-mongering that there might not be enough. And then what I like to think of as like chronic individualism. It was just about us and our family and how hard we had worked and how much we deserved this. And so that was the conversation we didn't want to have. The conversation that we want to have and the values attached to that conversation for us were kind of optimism and excitement. You know, we've come to this situation through business and we have worked hard, and I love the point that, you know, everyone's worked hard, but with our situation, we also want our money to work hard. We want to know what it's doing. We want transparency, and it seemed very, very hard to get transparency. So I want to know what it's doing. I want to feel optimistic and excited about what it's doing, and I want to have transparency about that. and moral courage, this fear-mongering. I want to get away from that, and it's moral courage. It's like, this is, I mean, there is a bigger conversation about the distribution, but whilst we're in this situation, we want to be making decisions that are getting away from this individualistic paradigm. It's not about us and our family. It's about the society we live in. That's what success looks like for us.
Thank you so much. Lauren, when you said you don't really have a wealth advisor yet, but when you do, what would you like this person to be like? What qualities and values would you like them to embody?
Yeah. Well, definitely echo what we've just heard. I wrote 3 down in preparation because I thought otherwise I'll just either not say anything or like ramble off. One of them was about not having more than you need, and that has already been mentioned today a couple of times. And that is like, it's obviously a hard thing to calculate, right? Like Jonathan explained, like, what does that even look like? But we have to try. We have to try, otherwise we won't do anything else. So, I mean, I don't have an advisor, but I have a very rudimentary calculation on an Excel spreadsheet on my laptop where I'm trying to figure out what do I need every month and what can I do with the rest of it. So I think that's one thing. It's about what do you need and then what else is there, rather than this is all that you have. Having a positive impact on people and planet. I mean, that's just like a basic thing for me. Like, that's not, like, it's not radical. Like, we just want to do good for people on Earth, species on Earth, and the planet itself. And whether that be like through what you do with your wealth and thinking about tax, but also like your day-to-day habits. Like, that's another just very basic one for me, I think. And that we're all connected. Like, everything on Earth is connected. The fact that, you know, in the not too distant future, if we don't do anything, and possibly even if we do, somewhere like Bangladesh, huge parts of Bangladesh will be underwater because of sea level rise. Well, I've had a part to play in that. And I think I feel that so strongly in everything that I see on the news, everything that I read, every conversation I have. I see the interconnectedness of everything. And so I just can't see me and my family and what we have as a silo from everything else. So yeah, seeing everything as a connected system and the role that you play in that is also something I would want to be able to have a conversation about.
Thank you. James, you are, okay, no, I'm not going to say progressive to you. I don't really know how to phrase it. Enlightened wealth movement. What does it mean to be a disruptor in this culture of wealth management?
Well, it's actually a very joyful place to be because, you know, what Jenny was just describing, I think, is spot on, which is the organizing idea of the current paradigm is fear. Is fear. It's about protecting you from things, and your protection is your bubble of wealth. And you know, I don't know if anyone knows about that longitudinal study that was done in the US where they were looking at what factors lead people to have a happy and fulfilled life. And the only correlation that they could find was the strength and the depth of people's relationships in their life. And what's interesting about this industry, to me, is that it serves to basically isolate you. It says, here's a bubble. You're in it, you lucky thing. You're not with the kind of zombie movie out there, God. You get to kind of live in this special place. And the worst thing that could befall you is that you leave this bubble. God! It's like a kind of hamster wheel you've got to stay on. And it's actually a very isolating energy. And what's joyful about this work is when you think about your wealth in a way that sees it, as Jenny was describing, as like a resource. And goodness knows, we're living in a world that obviously needs change and it needs investment in things like nothing wrong with paying for hospitals and nurses and teachers. It's okay to pay for those things, you know, wealthy people. And there's nothing wrong with investing in technologies which are going to lead to the transitions that we need in this world, sustainable food systems, renewable energy, those sorts of things. You know, when you put your wealth to work for those things, it's incredibly joyful because what it does is it connects you to each other, to other people, to the world. And it's the opposite of this isolating energy, of this fear-based paradigm. So, like, the best thing about it is it's completely joyful, it's very hopeful and very energizing because you end up living in interdependence. instead of living in individualism. And the organizing idea, the paradigm shift, as far as I'm concerned, is the move from individualism to interdependence. And that's the key.
Jonathan, I was struck when in your introductory comments, you said that people you've met are really nice, generally. And I had a taxi driver the other day who said he'd been behind the wheel for 45 years. And I said, what have you learned? And he said, I've learned that most people are really nice. They just have bad days. So, I thought that was a great piece of wisdom. But now I forgot my question. No. Do you consider like yourself and the people up here as exceptions, or do you think there's a wider community that really doesn't feel good about how things are and want to see a change in wealth management and redistribution?
I guess I don't know, because I don't know anyone else but me. But I know what I think, and I don't think I'm exceptional. Like, I think that I guess the lesson I've learned, I come from an industry. I worked in technology and digital, which has gone through this revolution in the last 20 years, everyone knows. And what happened in that was that everyone who was in it and didn't go on the revolutionary journey, they basically sat there and went, well, we'll wait till our customers tell us. We'll wait till we meet the people that want to buy on the internet or want to organize on the internet or want to, do whatever it is they're going to do on the internet. And their customers never told them. They just went somewhere else. They just said, and that's what I can see happening here. I just listen to these people, and I listen to my friends, and I listen to their values, and they watch the same television shows. And I was also struck by the point this morning about Hackney in the city, but there's still so much more that those two people share than separate them. And so we all know what's going on. So we're all going to make decisions for ourselves. And ultimately, if the service industries that don't serve our needs, we're not going to phone them up and say, you've got 6 months to change. We're going to see over there's a better option, and someone's going to tell us there's a better option, and we'll just go. And that, I think, is what's going to happen. So I'm convinced I think everybody thinks like I do. I think the industry, I just think we need some industry players to awaken that in us and say, it's okay, you can be tax proud. You're allowed to be tax proud, and that's not a weird thing. You're not going to have to justify that to anybody. You're not going to have to win an argument that paying tax is a good thing, which just seems ridiculous. But so I just think that's what will happen. And yes, therefore I think a lot of people think like we do. I think the industry hasn't yet recognised that that's how the majority think.
I want to ask, I have maybe time for one last question, but I really want to ask anyone who wants to jump in here, like, what are the big blockers to achieving this change? Like, what have you come up against in your own personal experience that's been like, oh, wow, that either it's fear-mongering or patriarchy? Can anyone speak to something they've experienced which has blocked them on their journey, their wealth journey?
A small thing, even like one of the points that I wanted to make sure I said was like, you don't have to know everything or know the perfect way to do it before you're here. If that was the case, I would not be here. You probably would never hear from me. Jake asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, are you sure you want me to speak? I don't really know very much yet. I'm not even the wealth holder yet. Like, why am I the person to speak? But I'm putting myself on that journey, recognizing where I am and learning so much as I go. So I think, don't wait until you think you know like exactly the best way to do it. Like, just start doing something differently, because we have to. Otherwise, we're not moving anywhere. So yeah, I think we block ourselves, I think, is the thing sometimes. So we've got to get over it.
I think one that is kind of challenging because it's giving up power. I think it might feel natural to hold on to power. And as a person in a position of power, I'm encouraged to see myself as the expert and to, when trying to set up our foundation, for example, I was advised that we should put in the bylaws that blood family will always have ultimate control over decision making. And I was like, this feels extremely archaic to use blood family. But also, I mean, it just really reflected this idea that, I often hear when we say we want to pay more taxes or believe in tax justice, but you can give philanthropically, and then you can choose, and you can do it better. And I think we already know philanthropy can be deeply unaccountable and is undemocratic. And those people who typically are on boards of foundations and in philanthropy already have so much power in society. And here with philanthropy, they get to choose what is funded and how it is funded, which is, in many ways, kind of too much power for some individuals to hold over public life and public questions. And that is why we have this incredible system of democracy, which we have our democracy advocate here to talk more about. I think, I guess for me, the challenge personally has been to give up my own power and those around me who hold power as well, both in our philanthropy and also in trusting the kind of democratic process and the state and the systems that we're all collectively part of.
Yeah, let the excess go instead of protect and grow, right? I can only add to that. I think might not be the first one to think of, but one of the big blockers is comfort. Mm-hmm. Comfort kills creativity, but it also kills political activity. And we also see that we have shifted towards telling consumers that whether or not their cucumber in this plastic condom that they buy and it's organically farmed is going to save the world or not. And I'm like, this is not where the decision is being made. The decision has been made at this point. And it was made by very particular people, those who are in power and should be in power in democratically legitimate governments. But they're also being made by people who, at the end of the day, own those companies. There's always a person at the end of this line, at least one, or a family, or a group of people. But there's always people at the end of this, through the system, thinking that they might be better than others in making these decisions, or in choosing the options that they then offer society to choose from, creating the variety, which is not because it's only through their lens. And this comfort aspect is really important. It's uncomfortable to let go of power, but frankly, philanthropy or impact investing, or all of these super nice things, none of these are a good, what's the word, when you take something and you put something in place, replacement for justice. And justice is something that is only achievable when everybody who's concerned gets to say what it means. And that means not just white rich kids like me have to be at the tables where these things are discussed. I'm overrepresented in my government already. Mm-hmm. So to let go of the money, of the power, but also to help the groups that are doing so much work on the justice fronts, be it racial justice, be it sexual and gender justice, be it social justice, you name it, to empower these people, to fuel your finances into their movements, into their work, no strings attached, because you trust that they want the best for everybody, because that's what they do every day. They're in the front lines next to their 40-hour job and their family and the broken down washing machine that they don't have any funds for. Those are the people changing society, not us. And we should make sure that they get the places. And we should make sure that we stand in solidarity with these people in the movements in order to get to a place where everybody is well off, because that should be the ultimate goal of society, frankly.
Thank you. Okay, we're out of time. Can I whiz through the last three, or? Yeah, okay. Jen.
Okay, so just briefly, I guess barriers might be, like we've talked about, assumptions and the same conversations and tradition. And I think it's about pushing through those things and starting new conversations and having confidence to have them. And like you say, Jonathan, it's not crazy. This is the conversation we want to have, and it's a very rational one. And it's one that I'm sure advisors, would be really excited to do. So it's creating that new space. It is different, but it is a very rational conversation and way forward. And it is one that should be approached with complete excitement, really.
Yeah, I mean, and I fully agree with that. I think if you start the conversation with what with the client and what the client's values are and how the client wants to show up with their assets, it's a very uncertain and much more risky conversation on one level, because the advisor is supposed to be the expert, right? So it's like, this is what I'm an expert in, so I'm going to serve you my expertise. The minute you start from the client focus, you're into a whole world that you don't really know, because I don't know what they're going to even say. And will I even have the knowledge to be able to contribute any expertise to that? So I understand the risk, but it just doesn't play out like that. You know, it doesn't play out like that. And actually, the advisors can find, if they don't have it in-house, they can find the expertise that's necessary. And what we're starting to see is this new breed of advisors who start with the client, and if they don't know the answers themselves, they find someone who does. And that's a much better model than just serving the expertise that you have, whether it's wanted or not.
I guess really quickly, just another lesson I learned from the world I've come from, a real culture of protection for the people who are already doing this. I think that one of the difficulties for the advisors, I guess I'm not an advisor, I don't know, is a lot is linked to your performance and your jobs and the way you work. We have to protect that and make that a really easy transition. That's a real blocker. If we just go in and say, we've got to change this whole industry, no one will change because it's really scary, right? It has to be with everybody. Everybody has to change together. It can't change, it will change if it doesn't, but it'll be much more unpleasant and much more uncomfortable. So I think that we have to protect and not demonize the culture of advisors, because I don't think there's anything to demonize. Just want to be really clear about that.
Well, that's us. Thank you very much.